Behind the scenes, there was a sequence in Animal House when Karen Allen made her film debut that almost didn't happen. It took an unexpected gesture from Donald Sutherland to get her to reconsider her decision when she paused during a pivotal sequence with him. Why did this rising celebrity consent to something that didn't sit well with her? Keep watching to learn this unexpected behind-the-scenes tale and a ton of other Animal House mysteries you probably were unaware of. An improvised drunk scene by Verna Bloom. John Belushi wasn't the only one in Animal House who could improvise. The character Marion Wormer was also given an opportunity to improvise by Verna Bloom. The sequence when she calls the mayor while intoxicated, including Dean Wormer, wasn't always meant to happen that way. Bloom was urged to improvise by director John Landis, who was unhappy with the scripted version of the sequence. The result was a performance that was both more genuine and hilarious, leaving a lasting impression on viewers. Bloom, who died in 2019, had a stellar acting career, but her portrayal in Animal House is still widely regarded as a masterpiece. A battle over food. There is no actual food fight in this scene. "Food fight," Bluto exclaims in one of the most memorable scenes from Animal House. I have an interesting anecdote to share. The so-called food battle is short-lived and involves very little real battling with food. I assume you recall it as a very chaotic event. While the sequence is entertaining, director John Landis said that all the food is tossed into the air in a single shot. Still, if there is a movie with a food battle, many people think of Animal House. What a powerful example of the power of a memorable experience. Sometimes, even when things don't go according to plan, it still stays with you. Scene involving African Americans. When the Delta fraternity unexpectedly finds itself in a roadhouse populated by African Americans, it is undeniably one of the most memorable scenes in Animal House. You may recall the uncomfortable tension that arises when they become aware that they are at the incorrect location. This sequence was nearly never shot. Concerned about the reception from viewers, the studio was on edge. Even though it's impossible to picture Animal House without that famous sequence, director John Landis has said that there was real worry that it may provoke uproar. In 2018, Landis disclosed to Cigar Aficionado how near they were to making the cut. Fearing race riots across America as a result of the scenario, Universal Pictures. President Ned Tannen expressed his concerns. Considering the seriousness of the racial situation in the late 1970s, the studio obviously wanted to avoid taking any chances. But then, a remarkable event occurred. Suddenly, the famous comic Richard Pryor appeared. Landis had faith that Pryor, whose comedic work often addressed racial issues directly, would be the one to resolve the dispute. He made arrangements for Pryor to see the film in secret. After seeing the sequence, Pryor sent a letter to Tannen. The letter sent by Pryor was brief, unfiltered, and to the point. He recorded, "Ned, both white folks in Animal House are absolutely bonkers. It just took that, Richard. The scene remained, and the remainder is annexed per Pryor's agreement. The chance lost by Donald Sutherland." Actor Donald Sutherland almost made a killing as the film's easygoing Professor Jennings. If only he'd gambled on the film's box office success. Even though Animal House is now considered a comedic classic, its success in the 1970s was uncertain. Of those doubters, Sutherland was a part. In his opinion, the film was doomed to fail. Upon receiving his casting call, the producers offered Sutherland a choice: $50,000 up front or a little cut of the film's future earnings. He decided to pay up front since he didn't think Animal House would be successful. He paid a heavy price for his choice. After the film became a huge financial success, Sutherland could have made about $3 million if he had gone with the percentage option. A new ensemble. Even though John Belushi's portrayal of Bluto on Animal House is hard to imagine without him, did you know that the show was originally going to include even more famous comedians? Originally, the producers were hoping to have additional SNL cast members join Belushi on screen. Otter was going to be played by Chevy Chase, Boone by Bill Murray, and D-Day by Dan Aykroyd was discussed. Such a lineup of comedic greats would have been the stuff of dreams. None of those performers were cast in the film. The already star-studded Chevy Chase had no interest in being bound to an ensemble cast. Because Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd were already booked for other projects, the producers had to redirect the project. Casting unknown actors was director John Landis's last resort, since he was afraid the film would look and feel too much like a Saturday Night Live production. Never was a sequel. After the tremendous success of Animal House, Universal Pictures began planning a sequel right away. They came up with a really outlandish idea. The second film was supposed to take place in 1967 during the Summer of Love. At Otter's wedding, the storyline would have centered on the reunion of the Delta brothers. I mean, it seems like it might have been some crazy experience, didn't it? Things didn't work out, however, as is typical in the entertainment industry. Following the financial failure of More American Graffiti, a sequel to a comedy set in the 1960s, the studio lost interest in making similar films. After John Belushi's untimely death in 1982, all chance of a Bluto and Delta fraternity continuation series was dashed. 2 seasons of Animal House were officially canceled. Delta House, the premature TV spin-off. Animal House may not have had a proper sequel, but it did inspire a television spin-off series called Delta House. A mere year after the film's debut in 1979, the program went on TV. Bruce McGill played D-Day, Stephen Furst played Flounder, and John Vernon played Dean Wormer, all of whom returned from the first film. However, Michelle Pfeiffer was also exposed to the public via the program. Yeah, I see. Prior to her meteoric rise to Hollywood stardom, Michelle Pfeiffer made her television debut on the short-lived Delta House, where she played the part of the bombshell. Prior to its cancellation, just 13 episodes had been produced. Is it the key issue? There was continual animosity between the show's producers and ABC network officials. The racy comedy that made the film a hit was too much for the network, so they repeatedly toned it down. The outcome was that Delta House fell short of the original film's enchantment and was canceled after just 1 season. Quite a scenario. The directors encountered an unforeseen obstacle while trying to make the actors' hair fit the 1960s style. It would seem that the on-set hairstylist was inadequate. Some say the stylist asked for too much vacation time, while others say they just weren't familiar enough with 60s hairstyles. John Landis ultimately chose to intervene independently. In order to have the Delta cast's haircuts recreated, he took them to a neighborhood barbershop and asked if he could. Upon hearing the actors' requests, the barber promptly trimmed their hair in a style typical of the 1960s. Everything is now okay, maintaining the fraternity house. You would think the actual fraternity house used for Animal House would have been totally destroyed after all the revelry, mayhem, and devastation that takes place within. Surprisingly, however, the Eugene building at the University of Oregon, where the scenes were shot, remained mostly undamaged. A hole in the wall created by John Belushi during the iconic guitar-smashing scene was the sole permanent damage. The fraternity house there really found the hole to be very neat. The staff decided against fixing it and instead framed it, placing a plaque at the location where Belushi left his imprint. That little piece of film history didn't make it. 8 years after the film's debut, in 1986, the structure was demolished. A quiet beginning for Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon is now a household figure in Hollywood. Although he had no fame whatsoever in 1978, his acting debut was in Animal House, and he was, unsurprisingly, not exactly pampered. Even the ushers at the Animal House premiere didn't recognize Bacon when he arrived. Due to this confusion, Bacon was seated with the ordinary audience at the rear of the auditorium, while the rest of the company remained together. When put in context with Bacon's meteoric rise to fame after Animal House, the anecdote becomes much funnier. Despite his troubled beginning, he is now among the film's most successful performers. University of Oregon. If you thought you knew all there was to know about Animal House, here's something more. Most of the shooting took place at the University of Oregon, which only gave the go-ahead to film because the president of the institution was afraid of making the same mistake again. The producers of the legendary 1967 film The Graduate, starring Dustin Hoffman, had actually contacted the institution some years before, but the president had previously declined to allow them to film on campus. He made the choice without even reading the script. After the release of the critically acclaimed film The Graduate, the president recognized he had missed out on a golden chance. He was determined not to let another major picture pass him by when the Animal House crew requested to film at the institution. The go-ahead to shoot in Oregon came from him without hesitation. Curiously, Animal House failed to get even a single Oscar nomination, in contrast to The Graduate's string of victories. Nonetheless, the president of the university eventually got his taste of Hollywood stardom, and the film went on to become a masterpiece in its own right. The return on investment for Animal House was 47 times. Animal House's meteoric rise to fame was completely unexpected when it first debuted in cinemas. Even by 1970s standards, the film's meager budget of $2.7 million was pitiful. At the conclusion of its run, Animal House earned $141.6 million, which is far more than the typical success threshold of at least double the budget. The film's earnings were more than 47 times its production expenditure. Particularly for an explicit comedy like Animal House, that type of profit margin was really unprecedented in those days. Animal House was to be directed by Ivan Reitman. There was talk of bringing in Ivan Reitman before John Landis was selected to helm Animal House. At one point, Reitman considered taking over as director of Animal House. He went on to film blockbusters like Ghostbusters and Twins. There was a snag. He was eager to direct the picture after co-producing it. Back then, Reitman's directorial skills were lacking. His only feature film directing credit is Cannibal Girls, a low-budget horror comedy. The producers opted for a more seasoned candidate since Animal House was a larger undertaking with greater stakes. Comedian John Landis stepped in, fresh off his directing gig at the Kentucky Fried Movie. Although Reitman was not given the opportunity to direct Animal House, he remained on as a producer and subsequently achieved immense success in his career as a filmmaker. Harold Ramis did not get cast in the film. Boone was really written by Harold Ramis, who also co-wrote the script for Animal House. Although he had aspirations of starring in the film, director John Landis had other plans. At 33 years old, Ramis seemed too elderly to portray a college student effectively, according to Landis. Peter Riegert, who looked younger while being only a few years younger than Ramis, ended up playing the role. Although he was not cast in Animal House, Ramis starred in and directed many huge 1980s comedy, such as Caddyshack, Ghostbusters, and Stripes. Even more unruly was the real-life Delta fraternity. Those wild activities of the Delta fraternity in Animal House were really based on true stories, if you can believe it. Screenwriters Harold Ramis, Doug Kenney, and Chris Miller drew extensively on their undergraduate experiences for the film's screenplay. Specifically, Miller's crazy anecdotes from his time in the Alpha Delta Phi fraternity served as the plot's foundation. Unfortunately, not all of Miller's true experiences were included because of how harsh they were. John Landis, the film's director, said that several fraternity stories written by Miller were hateful and so unsuitable for the big screen. Landis ensured that the final screenplay had just the correct amount of chaos and fun, because he was afraid that some of the antics and pranks might turn off viewers. The end product was a film that managed to be both outrageous and funny without resorting to brutality. Bluto was almost Meatloaf's role. Though it's hard to think of anybody other but John Belushi as Bluto in Animal House, Meatloaf was really a major contender for the role. Yes, the famous rock star and actor was on-cited playing the part of the Wild Delta brother. Meatloaf's appearance in the Rocky Horror Picture Show and other stage productions were his most notable accomplishments during that period. Bat Out of Hell, his smash record that came out around the same time as Animal House, didn't propel him to rock superstardom quite yet. Belushi was cast as the lead, while Meatloaf persisted in his musical career. Nonetheless, seeing Meatloaf as Bluto on Animal House is entertaining. Donald Sutherland and Karen Allen's scene, Starman and Raiders of the Lost Ark co-star Karen Allen, who first appeared in Animal House, went on to have a successful acting career. Her character, Katie, had an intimate encounter with Professor Jennings, played by Donald Sutherland in one scene. Alan was initially uneasy about the concept of showing her bottom for the sequence, but it was director John Landis's desire. Donald Sutherland, on the other hand, handled the situation well. In an effort to put Alan at ease, he even volunteered to strip down to his underwear on camera. In subsequent interviews, Alan said that Sutherland changed her mind and consented to the sequence because of her readiness to be vulnerable. "I thought it was really nice of him to do that," Alan said, "so I figured, all right, if Donald's going to do it, I might as well join in." In real life, Otis Day became a famous musician. Animal House has a number of memorable characters, one of whom is Otis Day, the Roadhouse singer who plays Shout during the party. After thoroughly immersing himself in the character, actor Dwayne Jesse officially changed his name to Otis Day. Jesse chose to go by his true stage name, Otis Day, after his lip-syncing rendition of a song by Lloyd Williams became so famous, even though he wasn't singing in the film. He went so far as to purchase the character's rights from Universal Studios, allowing him to play both Otis Day and the Knights in real-life performances. Wow, it's like art mimicking reality. Stephen Furst's pizza delivery was the key to his role. One of the greatest anecdotes about getting a job in Hollywood is the one told by Stephen Furst, who portrayed the charming Flounder in Animal House. To get by, Furst was delivering pizzas when this happened. Every time he brought pizza to an A-lister, he would slip a photo of himself and his resume inside the box. Furst once brought a pizza to National Lampoon publisher Matty Simmons. Simmons saw Furst's resume and thought he would be worth a go. The rest is history. Furst was cast as Flounder after a successful audition. Switch places. What's striking is that the character that Martha Smith plays as Babs in Animal House was virtually recast entirely. Mandy, the girl who John Belushi's Bluto peeks at in the iconic ladder scene, was originally going to be played by her. However, Smith felt uneasy about it once she realized what the scenario included. Therefore, she requested a role switch with Mary Louise Weller, who was cast as Mandy instead. This sequence was typical in comedy back then, but now some think it shows women in an antiquated light. The cafeteria antics of John Belushi. Bluto, played by John Belushi, wreaks havoc in the cafeteria in another iconic scene from Animal House. Everyone remembers the "I'm a zit" joke, the donuts he put into his mouth, and the pile of food. Surprisingly, Belushi invented almost all of it on the fly. John Landis, the director, was completely unprepared for the moment they were about to shoot. The cameraman was told to stay with him until Belushi did his thing, he said. Comedy gold. That was the outcome. The script didn't call for Bluto to inhale jelly and put that crazy amount of food on his plate. Rather, the scene's lasting impression was created by Belushi's spontaneous brilliance. The whole gross-out scene in which he spits food all over himself while yelling, "I'm a zit," was all improvised. The original plan for that moment was Landis making a cameo appearance. He had planned to portray a cafeteria worker who intervenes when Bluto attempts to pilfer all the food. Bluto would yell, "You don't F with the Eagles unless you know how to fly," as he threw Landis to the ground in the edited scene. Our exploration of some obscure aspects of Animal House is now complete. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, like this video, comment below, and enable alerts so you won't miss any of our future videos if you liked it. I appreciate you tuning in.